After 1 week, man, the Locked On NFL crew, they dropped some heat about these quarterbacks. David Harrison and I today are going to take a look at what they said here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise and Wiggy's ready with his scissors and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Wiggy, as they call me, I am ready. I'm in the barbershop and I'm ready to bring the barbershop to you here on Locked On NFL, the second part of Locked On NFL. The first part, Tyler Rowland, the madman, came through and gave you a shot of NFL Espresso. It is the new Locked On NFL. That is exactly what we do here every single day, and we appreciate you making us your first listen. Today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. Now listen to this. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5, just $5, and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Shout out to the Everydayers for joining us. And every Wednesday, I am joined by my man, David Harrison. David, you ready to talk about these quarterbacks? We might even get to the one you cover every day too.
Oh, yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. Tyler Rowland, the madman. I mentioned him. Now check this out. He dropped a gem on Locked On Titans. I don't want you to hear what he has to say about Will Levis.
Brian Callahan could have been better with the play calling and put Will Levis in a better spot. Again, tough defense, 10th game ever, all of these things. Now, is it fair? Also want to mention that Will Levis was pressured the second most in the NFL this weekend. 47% of Will Levis's dropbacks, he was under pressure. The Titans' offensive line was 28th in pass block grade on Pro Football Focus. So I don't want to make excuses for Will Levis, but there are also a lot of things outside of the game itself that must be considered here, or not outside of the game itself, but context around his performance that has to be considered. And I'm just saying it's not time to give up.
So the old saying in the military, I don't know if you ever heard this, so this probably was one of those Air Force things, because they got to be all, they're different than the Army and everybody. It says excuses and reasons are identical twins depending on who's looking at it. So he gave very valid reasons, but I think you might have a little bit of different take on Will Levis.
Yeah, I will agree with Tyler here that it is too early to just give up on Will Levis and pull him and all that stuff. What I will not agree with is that Will Levis is not the creator of his own mayhem, right? So, I know Tyler threw out a percentage there, 47% of his dropbacks he was pressured on. Listen, I watched all 40 of Will Levis's dropbacks from that game, and he was pressured, according to the film that I watched, he was pressured 15 times. Now, not all pressures are created equal. So even if it's 47, even if it's 37, whatever percentage of pressures you have, they're like interceptions. Not every interception is created equal. Not every interception is on the quarterback. Well, not every pressure is on the offensive line. And Wig, only 3 times that I counted from watching, again, all 40 Will Levis's dropbacks, did the pressure come before or right at the top of Will Levis's drop. And as well as I know, and in the NFL, if you're a quarterback, you get to the top of your drop, it is time to make a decision. Throw the ball or run it. Like one of those two things needs to happen. If you stand in the pocket, because we see the Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jacksons of the world get to the top of their drop, they hitch, whatever. Okay, and that's fine. But just understand, you are now playing with your own time. You're now betting on yourself and all those things. Everybody would love to have an offensive line that lets a quarterback get to the top of his drop, hitch, bounce around, go this way. Now I'm going to throw the ball. Everybody would love to have that offensive line. That is not the reality of the National Football League. You're not going to get that much time. So 3 times Will Levis was pressured quicker than it took him to get to the top of his hitch or top of his drop or right at the top of his drop. I gave him credit for one. Technically, he got there, but it was pretty quickly thereafter. So I gave him credit for that one. So that means 37 times you drop back and you got to the top of your drop and had the opportunity to make a decision, and you either made a bad one or at least didn't make the right one, right? The interception he threw came on a late throw. It's an outbreaking route. He was late on the delivery. That's not the offensive line's fault. There was a throw that that should have been intercepted that was dropped by a Bears defender. Again, it was late. Both of the 2 of his 3 sacks that didn't result in a fumble came after Will Levis in his progression passed up open receivers. Those are decisions that you have to be able to make. The strip sack There was nobody open. Chicago Bears defense covered that up really, really well. But Will Levis is rolling out to the right, and Wig, he stops at the right hash, right outside the pocket. So instead of fully rolling out to the right side, give his receiver some opportunity to come open for him, he stops and gets ready to try to fire that ball into double coverage deep down the right side. It's 3rd and 6. Brother, you need 6.5 yards. You don't need a touchdown here. You want a touchdown, great, but you just need 6.5 yards. So roll out towards the sideline. You've got from the right hash to the sideline open. Keep rolling. Let your 3 underneath routes try to come open for you, or see if you can get a defender to overcommit and find some green to run for the first down yourself. One of those 2 things. But what you don't need to do is stop, plant, and throw the ball into double coverage, which is exactly what he's about to do. It takes him forever just to do that. So the Bears defender on the backside catches up and knocks the ball out. Those are absolutely decisions that are on Will Levis. So while I will agree that it's not time to pull the plug on Will Levis yet, if you're Coach Callahan, I will not say it's not because Will Levis wasn't responsible for some of his own demise on Sunday.
I just think you got to pick the thing that, favors you. And what that is standing there in the pocket for a long time doesn't favor you, because I know those offensive linemen is like, he's got to be gone by now, or the ball has to be gone by now. And then on those scramble routes, DBs hate that. So I would take advantage of the things that DBs hate. I would leave the pocket. If I'm going to leave the pocket, I would leave the pocket looking to throw the ball, because now the disadvantage goes to the defensive back, especially there man-to-man, because he doesn't see me scrambling. He doesn't see me running. You said move your arm or move your feet. There's a kid in Indianapolis that don't have that problem at all. And listen to Locked On Colts and their assessment of Anthony Richardson.
We can't rely on Anthony being an alien every week. We need to have the procedural stuff in front of him. And part of that's on him too. Like the layups, he has to hit some of those layups and stuff too, but it just needs to be a better process from this Colts team going forward.
Yeah, I think overall it was clunky and insane all at the same time, where I think they just have to be better on 1st and 2nd down.
I want him to be an alien every week, but I want him to be a controlled alien every week, where just because he's an alien, you don't treat him like one when it's time for preparation. You actually put the same structure in front of him that you would a traditional drop back passer, and allow him to ease into working out all of the kinks and knowing when to pull that great athleticism out in that beautiful arm, and when to just take a check down and play quarterback the way it's supposed to be played.
Yeah, listen, the National Football League, the game of football at any level, I don't care what level of football you're at, but especially in the National Football League, this is the ultimate team sport. This is not a sport where one great player can take you to a national championship or to a Super Bowl or whatever. And if you're playing in a high school league where one great athlete can take you to your state championship, you're not playing in a very good state for football. I'm just letting you know. This isn't baseball. This isn't basketball. You can't do that stuff. So Anthony Richardson might be great. And I'll tell you, the biggest deception that the greatest quarterbacks of all time have ever pulled off is people thinking that it's all them, right? Patrick Mahomes doesn't do what he does because it's only him and nobody else. Tom Brady, sure enough, does not do what he does because it's only him, or did because it's only him and nobody else. Joe Montana, go through, Terry Bradshaw, go through all these guys. It's a team sport. So I don't care if it's Anthony Richardson. I don't care if it's Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, A.J. Brown, Randy Moss, Jerry Rice, Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White. I don't care who the great player you're talking about is. If your strategy is that one dude is going to get you everywhere, everything you need to get, you're not operating at a sustainable level. Are you going to win games? Yes, you're going to win some games because one guy was an alien, played out of his mind, out of this world. But that is not a sustainable model. And the Colts absolutely have to find a way to get their offense on schedule to help out their quarterback. Because guess what? He might convert 7 3rd and 15s in the first 4 weeks of the season and look amazing and make ESPN every night. But there's going to be about 13 other 3rd and 15s that you don't convert, and those are lost points.
Yep, and those usually happen in big games. Usually it'll happen in games where the talent is matched and you ain't the only freak on the field. Like if you're on one side of the ball and Michael Parsons is on the other and he's playing a spy, well, guess what? Your freakazoid meter just went down a notch because he's just as much of a freak as you are. And I sound like I'm talking about Rick James or somebody, but I'm not. We're talking about football. We're talking about quarterbacks. We're going to stay on these young quarterbacks because Julian Council dropped a heat bomb talking about Bryce Young. We're going to talk about that and then give you a chance to talk about the development, the plan that the Commanders have for Jaden Daniels. We'll do all of that in just a second here in segment 2 on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. That's right, man. FanDuel is the absolute truth. Y'all know it. I know it. I've been saying it. And now football is really, really back, and those sports are sporting already. And I know y'all had a good time. Listen, it's America's #1 sports book. And guess what? We have something a little different for you right now. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV-based plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com. Download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, segment 2, Locked On NFL. David Harrison of Locked On NFL and Locked On Commanders dropping these heat missiles, man. And Julian Council is on with me Monday. David's on every Wednesday. Julian was on with me Monday. And I gotta play this for you, David, because I didn't even think that this was even a thought process. And that's why I love tapping into the local folks. I'm a local guy too. I do Locked On Jaguars, but they always have the finger on the pulse of the team. And Julian, it let me know that there's something brewing maybe behind the scenes and being talked about. Listen to this.
Like, we cannot necessarily look at all this in a vacuum, but we can be adults here, right? And understand, I hope, that moving on from Bryce Young after the first game of Dave Canales, who was brought in here to work with Bryce Young and do what he did for Geno and Baker for Bryce, it would make a lot of sense to hire that coach and go through all this trouble this offseason to help Bryce Young, then to say, actually, Bryce, never mind, you're done. We're going to Andy Dalton. That doesn't make any sense at all. This organization did not swap a 2023 first-round pick to get up to #1 overall. They did not send a 2023 second that year that they got from the Christian McCaffrey trade. They did not send a #1 overall pick in this past year's draft and a second-round pick next year, and DJ Moore to start Andy Dalton on Sunday against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Listen to this, man. Julian Council ripped it, and he made a good point. And I'm going to piggyback off something you said last week here on Locked On NFL. You were shocked that Dave Canales took that job. Now, I think guys just got to take jobs whenever they get them. But that's a weird situation with, I think, a pretty weird owner. And to me, the organization as a whole, I know they got Dan Morgan up there running things now. They just always seem to do something that just screams lack of organizational structure.
Yeah, man.
My man Harrison is speechless. He watched 78 snaps of Will Levis, and he's just like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you about this one. That's wild, man.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you talk about a situation where you have a coach, and I have a lot of respect for Dave Canales. I really like the dude. I think he's a very smart football person. I think he's got a great, he's got a great future ahead of him. That being said, there's a reason he took the Carolina Panthers job, right? Mm-hmm. He's the coach that took the job nobody else wanted. And he took it because he's the coach that no other team would hire. Like, that's not, and I don't mean that as a negative. He doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have the track record. He doesn't have the resume yet to be hired to be a head coach for the Los Angeles Chargers in the situation they're in, or the Washington Commanders in the situation where they're in. Because the thing about David Tepper that David Tepper has kind of shown in his very short history as an NFL owner is he is much, much, much more interested in finding the quick route to winning a Super Bowl than he is to finding the right route to winning a Super Bowl. Trading Christian McCaffrey, trading Brian Burns, trading DJ Moore, doing all this craziness, going after the sexy athletic quarterback, and he can blame whatever other people he hired or whatever that he wants to for all the decisions he made. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, he's basically looked at it and said, you're not going to be here for 10 years, so I'm going to get rid of you. You're not going to be here for 10 years. And what he doesn't understand is that the foundation of an organization is not just the roster. The roster is obviously very important, what we see first foremost on Sundays, but it's the culture of the team that you have. And some teams have an amazing culture of winning. Look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. It doesn't matter who they bring in there, who they drafted, who they signed, who got signed away, who got traded. The culture of that organization is we compete and we win. And we may not win it all, but dang it, we're going to go out there and we're going to win more games than we're going to lose. That is the culture of that team. The Carolina Panthers right now have a culture of the second something doesn't go our way, we're going to look for the nuke button, and we're going to try to find a way to just go nuclear on this whole thing and figure out the biggest swing we can take to make the biggest move to get the biggest return on our investment. I don't know how this man is a successful businessman, because you can't operate a business that way, and he's showing it with the Carolina Panthers. Listen, I don't know that Bryce Young is ever going to be a franchise quarterback in the National Football League, but I can tell you that Andy Dalton from here on out is never going to be a franchise quarterback in the National Football League. So the question is, do you want to find a franchise quarterback or don't you? And if you do, Bryce Young's your only shot. And if you want to go with Andy Dalton, go with Andy Dalton. Do it. Go for it, brother. Go for it. I hope Carson Beck works out for you next year.
Yep, and I hope they look up and see Baker Mayfield. Maybe the two most efficient quarterbacks this past weekend was Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. And then they realized that both of those guys were sitting right into their organization, and they were like, nah, we don't want him. Nah, we don't want him. And maybe you dumped the wrong cargo sometimes. So one of the things that I did give you credit for last week, I don't even think you know, when you did a short about Sam Cosmi. And my take on that was Washington's brass, some people said they were very inexperienced or whatever. They made two big decisions. They came in and realized that they were going to part ways with Jahan Dotson, and then that's a wide receiver. But then they decided to help their young quarterback in Jaden Daniels and keep Sam Cosmi and give him an extension. I think those moves indicate that they understand infrastructure and they understand that protecting Jaden Daniels is the number one priority, and making sure he has the things around him that'll help him succeed.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, something that really bothered me when Dave Canales was first getting talked about as head coaching candidate for Carolina, and it still bothers me to this day, is he resurrected Baker Mayfield. I think everybody needs to kind of start understanding. I understand the national talking heads don't want to do it because they don't want to get burned again, because there was a time where the national media was very in love with Baker Mayfield, and they all feel embarrassed now because he kind of fizzled out. And I don't want to get into the history of Baker Mayfield. You know, that's not what we're here for today. But understand something. Baker Mayfield, what he's doing today, what he did on Sunday that I saw with my own two eyes in Tampa as they beat the brakes off the Washington Commanders, I saw him do the same types of things in Carolina. I saw him do the same types of things in LA, and I dang sure saw him do the same types of things in Cleveland. Okay? So nobody made Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is. The question is, do you have the right chemistry between coach, scheme, and player? That's the question. And Baker Mayfield, at one point in time, there was that in Cleveland. It went away. It wasn't there in Carolina. It was actually kind of there in LA, which is why Liam Cohen is now in Tampa instead of LA and Kentucky. And guess what? Now they've got that chemistry back. You saw the result. You saw the result in week one, and you're going to see the result in this season if the Buccaneers can stay healthy. But it's not because Dave Canales arrived at Tampa and just stripped Baker down to parts and then rebuilt him up like some sort of robot. Like, Baker is who Baker is. And one of the things about who Baker is he's always going to be who he is, and he's not going to change for any coach. So you've got to be able to play with your players. If Dave Canales can't be successful with Bryce Young from a scheme and personality standpoint, then you need to separate the two. Make a decision, David Tepper, but you created this situation. You are not, and I'm not saying David says he's a victim anyway, but you're not a victim of the circumstances. You're the creator of the circumstances. But if this team goes to Andy Dalton, you need to trade Bryce Young. You need to trade Bryce. If you have any hope of anybody in the NFLPA believing that you are an organization that takes care of its players, if you bench Bryce Young, you need to trade him, because that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, they're going to ruin him. They're going to definitely ruin him, man. And we ain't ruining nothing here on Locked On NFL. In fact, we got something new going. The Locked On NFL, the new Locked On NFL is here. It's 2 shows every day. First, the Madman Tyler Rowland, who you heard from earlier. He hits you with the double shot of NFL Espresso, and then come on by the barbershop with me, Tony Wiggins, where we just get all in everybody's business and try to make sense out of it. Add in the local experts, and guess what? You get unprecedented NFL insight, hot topics, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the Madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Now, one of the surprises this week was the way that the Bengals got beat up by New England. They bullied them. Maybe New England has found an identity. And then the fellas over at Peacock and Williamson podcast made a bold prediction. We're going to see how that's standing up after 1 week. We'll do all of that in just a second here, the third and final segment on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored by eBay Motors. And let me tell you something about eBay Motors, man. They got a lot in common with football: passion, drive, and patience. It's the formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance: superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed or power or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Wow. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, we're starting the third and final segment here on Locked On NFL. And one of the more interesting games in hindsight that I found this week was the Patriots and the Bengals. I thought the Bengals were going to be one of the best teams in the National Football League, and I thought the Patriots were going to be one of the worst teams in the National Football League. But the Patriots have an identity, and that identity for me is one that is very, very successful. We're going to out-physical you. We're going to bully you to death, and we're going to see if you can stand tall. And obviously the Bengals were not up to the task. Listen to the guys up at Locked On New England Patriots and their perspective on what happened this Sunday.
We were wondering what the identity of this team is going to be, and it's a bully identity. All right, but it's a controlled bullying. All right, they came at Cincinnati with one purpose in mind: to bully them, to beat them up, and to let them know that they were going to be in a football game. And it was a beautiful thing, whether it was Duggar or Peppers or Jalen Hawkins or anybody on that side of the ball. It was, you knew that they were there. Mm-hmm. They made their presence felt, and you knew you were going to get hit if we were catching the ball on Sunday afternoon. And quite frankly, the Bengals stopped wanting to catch the football.
That's a bad look when somebody say basically you had scared money, like you didn't want to pay the tax for that real estate. That is not a good look for the Bengals when you consider that Omarius Mims is 6'7", 342 pounds, and he's the third biggest offensive lineman they have because of Baby Zeus, Orlando Brown, and they went up and got New England's big guy, who's the biggest one. He's like 6'8", 360 pounds. The Patriots didn't seem to miss him. And Keon White, guys like Keon White had 3 sacks. That means that all of that potential for that young man, that third-year player out of Georgia Tech, looks like it's about to turn the corner. Christian Barmore has already been extended, and I think Christian Gonzalez is a good player. All of a sudden, you look at that defense, and these kids that Bill Belichick drafted, and they said he couldn't pick, guess what? They're turning out to be okay, and New England might be on to something.
Isn't it ironic how that works?
Yep.
But you know what? At the same time, they got a new coach. And look, this coach might have come from the Bill Belichick tree, but he's not Bill Belichick. So who knows if this thing goes as well as it does. Bill Belichick is still there. But, kind of similar to what we talked about with Will Levis, right? The New England Patriots generated a quarterback sack, a hit, or a pressure 10 times. So they got to the opposing quarterback, the Cincinnati Bengals quarterback, Joe Burrow. They actually got to him in a pressure type of measurement less than Will Levis received pressure. To Tyler Rowland's, defense, Will Levis getting pressured, second most times in week 1. But they generated 3 sacks. They allowed 2 completions, two incompletions, 1 scramble, 1 defensive penalty, and 1 play that was negated by offsetting penalty. So that means in those 10 pressures, they had a 60% win rate, which I think you want to win more than that when you're getting pressured. But without those penalties, which are self-inflicted injuries, right, you have an 80% win rate. That's the key right there, is that you're getting a high percentage of win rate with your pressures. You're not just getting pressure, you're turning those pressures into successful plays. One of those sacks generated by White was just him simply winning his one-on-one, and he just simply beat Trent Brown off the right side of the New England Patriots formation. The second was an effective collapse by the pocket pressure and a blitzing linebacker taking out a backfield helper. You have that chip blocker coming up to help double team a guy. The blitzing linebacker said, "Nah, bro, you're going to come over here with me," and allow the pocket to collapse. The third sack was an effective pocket discipline by the pass rush. They contained Joe Burrow, didn't get too aggressive, and that's the key there. You want to be aggressive, but not overly aggressive. Joe Burrow got flushed, but he only had one place to go, right into the hands of Keion White. That is how you do it. Now, there's some other plays, and there's a scramble by Joe Burrow where you see the defensive end get too aggressive and basically run right around the quarterback. You're just opening the door up to the side of the formation and say, here, Joe, go ahead and flash what, athleticism you do have. So, there's certainly some mistakes there, but what it shows overall when you look at all those pressures is that the New England Patriots, first of all, they've got a very disciplined crew that are doing, for the most part, exactly what they're assigned to do, but also they have the ability, and it's 1 week, so let's not get too crazy either way, right? But in this 1 week, they show the ability to create pressure with 4 down linemen. So when you can put that many people in your secondary or in the second level of the defense to protect against the passing game, that is how you keep a quarterback like Joe Burrow grounded, and that is how you do what the New England Patriots were able to do. But I also want to give them a little bit. I want to boo-boo them a little bit, because nothing annoys me more, Wig, than when a team has potential and they spend a first-round draft pick on a quarterback they have no business starting in the first place. And I look at the New England Patriots. The New York Giants wanted a quarterback. We all saw Hard Knocks. You trade that number 3 overall pick to number 6. The New York Giants come up and they take Drake May potentially, or JJ McCarthy, whoever they're going to take. And guess what? At number 6, if you just need to have that developmental quarterback in your roster, fine. You take him at number 6, and then you take all that draft capital that you just picked up from the New York Giants on top of it, and you help out Jacoby Brissett. Because while the New England Patriots are getting after Joe Burrow, Jacoby Brissett is out there having a relatively solid day. 75 passer rating, not great, but not terrible. But when he's only got Austin Hooper, KJ Osborne, Hunter Henry out there to throw to, I mean, what do you expect the man to do? But if you use some draft capital, you go get him, I don't know, Brian Thomas Jr., not to take him away from your Jags, Wig, but if you go get him some weapons, you might beat the Cincinnati Bengals 24-10, and now people are really talking about your team.
Yeah, but even with that, I'll give them credit. They picked their guy number 3, and guess what they're doing? They got him waiting over there. They ain't trying.
Hey, at least they made that. You're right. At least they were smart there.
Yeah,
let's not start the draft capital. Let's start the guy who's ready for the job.
Yeah, you just sit over here, and we're going to protect you that way. Now, the guys at Peacock and Williamson, and everybody knows Matt Williamson joins me on Fridays, right here on Locked On NFL. They pick. I'm not picking on them now because we're talking about the Bengals, right? But after 1 week, I wonder if the take that they had, they'll take it back. And then I'm going to let you listen to it. And then I'm going to let you tell me if you would switch up and say something different after only 1 week.
Worst to first, who is it? Naz on Twitter says every year for the last 8 or so seasons, a team has finished last in their division, ends up winning the division the next year. Which team do you think has the best chance of doing that this year?
The obvious one here is the Bengals. I know that their division is the hardest of all 8 of these candidates, but I have a couple bucks on Joe Burrow to win MVP. I am going to pick the Bengals to win this division. I think they can win the Super Bowl. Who's your second choice? Mine's the Bears.
I think I got to pick the Bears because I just think they have the best team. How quickly does their young quarter, like if it's the CJ Stroud situation, then let's go, right? And I guess you could say the same for Washington. I think right now, though, looking at 22 starters, I like Chicago over Washington.
This is Peacock and Williamson.
All right, listen. Do you stick with the Bengals at number 1 after only 1 week, or do you cut bait, baby, and go ahead and move on to somebody else? That's what I got these Clippers for. We can get rid of it. We can get rid of an opinion real quick and act like it never existed. So what do you think? Is it, in your opinion, the Bears or the Bengals? And can you make that determination after only 1 week?
I don't think you can make a firm determination either way, but I think, when you consider the NFL game starts the quarterback position, right? Obviously, from all the teams that finished last place in their divisions last year, Joe Burrow is the best quarterback of all those teams. And Joe Burrow didn't play for a lot of those games when they won 9 games last year. So that helps you out, right? Justin Herbert, probably the second best with the Los Angeles Chargers. But even with him, playing with Harbaugh, I don't see them unseating the Kansas City Chiefs. But the Baltimore Ravens have potentially the tightest grip on a division of any team out here, especially if the Cleveland Browns are going to fall apart and all that stuff. So, like, from one angle, you want to go Bengals because Joe Burrow is a better quarterback. But at the other side, the Detroit Lions, they're a great story. And yes, they were a really good team late last year, especially, but they haven't proven it in multiple seasons yet. So because of that, there's a little bit of question mark of, are they actually going to be able to pull it off and be that same type of team? So that kind of, you would look at it and say that's more of an open door for the Chicago Bears. But I think if you look at, the combination of the two, I think you actually would look at the Tennessee Titans, even though I don't think it's going to happen. Like, the Tennessee Titans don't have a great quarterback themselves, but the Houston Texans, they've only had the one really good year. So again, they've got to prove it again this year. CJ Stroud's got to prove it again this year with every coach that he faces now having a full year of tape on him. And that's always hard to do. And so I would say that's the most susceptible division to a worst to first opening outside of the NFC South, but the Carolina Panthers are a dumpster fire. So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a good amount of options out there, but I think if I had to bet money on one of these teams, it'd be Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, just because I'm not going to bet on Joe Burrow to be less successful than Caleb Williams.
Yeah. So here's what I think. I think they got to get T. Higgins healthy, get him back. They got to get Jamar Chase paid. He shouldn't have to chase him back. He's too good. I know he's asking for his money a little bit early, but just get it on out of the way. I think if they do things will settle down, and maybe NFL players are like that, man. Sometimes they're like, oh man, we got all these problems going on. Jamar, we don't know if he's going to play. He's out there saying, I don't know, I'm a game time decision, all that. Those things are distractions. And if you're going to win, those things have to disappear. And the way that they disappear is you got to cut the check, baby. Cut the check and give him some money. That's what I do. And I try to end all of that stuff and make Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and everybody else very happy. So we're going to give Matt Williams some little grace and say, I'll still hang on to that bet. I ain't going to pick the Bears just yet because they were in trouble. They were losing the game the other day. Their quarterback threw for like 100 yards. So let's not overreact after 1 week. It's never an overreaction for you to join us here on Locked On NFL because you get a double dose of it. That's right. Tyler Rowland, the madman, kicks it off in the morning with the double shot of NFL espresso, and then you swing by the barbershop. We ain't drinking an espresso. What we drinking is brown over here, but it definitely ain't no espresso. You got to sip it real slow, right? Come on in here with me with some real NFL talk and add in the Locked On local experts, and you get unprecedented NFL insight. Hot opinions, detailed breakdowns, all in 30 minutes. It's the new Locked On NFL, and it's twice a day. Make the madman Tyler Rowland and the barber Tony Wiggins your second listen at the new Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. David Harrison, you have an appointment and assignment, sir, to show up next Wednesday so we can give some of this more NFL barbershop talk out. Until then, man, y'all take care of each other, and we'll do the same here on Locked On NFL. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.